Beneath the bustling streets of Cusco, Peru, hidden in plain sight under the colonial grandeur of the Santo Domingo convent, lies one of the most mysterious and controversial ancient structures in the Americas, Coricancha, the Golden Enclosure. Officially hailed as the most sacred temple of the Inca Empire, dedicated to the sun god Inti, Coricancha's massive stone foundations whisper of a far older story, one that mainstream archaeology struggles to explain. While the Spanish conquerors stripped its walls of gold and built their churches atop its ruins, they could not destroy the impeccable stonework at its core. Granite blocks, polished to a metallic sheen, are joined so tightly that not even a razor blade can pass between them. These aren't the crude remnants of a Bronze Age culture. They're the fingerprints of unknown builders possessing advanced technology. The precision and scale of Coricancha's construction have sparked bold theories that the Incas did not build it, but rather inherited it from a lost, advanced prehistoric civilization, one that possessed techniques and knowledge now vanished from history. With multi-angled polygonal masonry, vitrified stone joints, machine-like drill holes, and seismic-proof design that modern engineers still admire, Coricancha challenges our understanding of ancient history and the capabilities of our ancestors. Could there have been an earlier Andean civilization, one wiped out by some kind of cataclysm? A civilization that mastered the art of shaping and fitting stone with such elegance and durability, allowing it to last for thousands of years. What if the true builders of Coricancha left behind not just stones, but clues to an entire forgotten chapter of human history? If you're fascinated by the prehistoric civilizations missing from our history books, embark on a remarkable journey with our ebook, Prehistoric Megastructures. This nearly 500-page volume is packed with images and in-depth explorations of some of the most astonishing and unexplained ancient structures ever discovered, monuments that were clearly built with advanced technology from a time long forgotten. There's a limited discount on the ebook, so make sure to click the link in the description or top-pinned comment and uncover the mysteries that mainstream history refuses to acknowledge. At the southeastern edge of the colonial church of Santo Domingo in Cusco, Peru, lies one of the most compelling pieces of architectural evidence pointing to a lost mastery of stonework, the curved outer wall of Coricancha. Smooth, precisely carved and made from polished andesite blocks, this gently arcing facade defies not only the tools attributed to the Inca, but also the expectations of modern masonry. It is, in every sense, an architectural anomaly, one that has resisted damage through centuries of earthquakes, foreign conquest, and weathering. And yet, despite its resilience and elegance, its origin remains a subject of fierce debate. The wall curves outward in a perfectly uniform arc, hugging the modern street with an almost organic grace. It is made of large, tightly fitted andesite blocks, some over 1 meter tall and several tons in weight, each carved to match its neighbors so precisely that no mortar is needed. The curve itself is consistent throughout, forming what some have described as part of a perfect circle or ellipse. The stones are not stacked in flat, horizontal courses like brickwork. Instead, each row subtly adapts to the curve, and the individual stones are shaped to follow the radial lines of the arc, meaning each block had to be individually measured and carved to maintain the curvature. This is not a feature one typically finds in pre-industrial stonework, especially not in large-scale megalithic architecture. At first glance, the wall's precision might seem simply beautiful. On closer inspection, it becomes technologically provocative. To create such a wall today would require a detailed 3D plan, accurate surveying tools, and stone-shaping instruments capable of high-resolution measurements. That the stones also interlock along complex joints adds an additional layer of difficulty. This wasn't just an aesthetic decision, it was an engineering feat. The faces of the blocks are slightly convex. This convexity ensures that pressure is concentrated at the edges, enhancing the grip between stones. This subtle shaping was not an accident. It required an intimate understanding of stone mechanics. On the back side of the curved wall, you'll notice the typical knobs found on many megalithic stones around the world. But here, they are distinctly square, with precise right angles. These protrusions often appear in symmetrical patterns, especially on the mirrored sides of a window-like alcove. The arrangement suggests that something may have once been attached or fitted onto them, almost like interlocking pieces in a Lego-like system. The joints between blocks are so tight that not even a sheet of paper or a razor blade can fit between them. In several spots, these joints are not simple straight seams. They are multi-angled, zigzagging between adjacent blocks, increasing the contact surface and mechanical friction. Some of these joints appear fused or vitrified. There is a glassy sheen on certain seams, suggesting that intense heat may have been applied to partially melt the stone surface, a possibility that mainstream archaeology has yet to fully address. Alternative researchers argue that this vitrification may indicate the use of high-temperature stone fusion technology, perhaps using unknown tools or even advanced materials chemistry. Others suggest acoustic tools, or the manipulation of resonance frequencies to soften or levitate stone. While these ideas are speculative, they are rooted in a simple fact. The observable evidence cannot be easily reproduced with Bronze Age tools. This level of engineering is so far beyond the rest of Inca construction that it may represent a legacy of a far older and more technologically advanced culture, perhaps one that existed long before the Inca adopted Cusco as their capital. The Incas themselves claimed they did not build all the megalithic structures, referring to them as constructions left by the gods. If we go inside the temple, things get even stranger. One of the most striking anomalies is the series of trapezoidal doorways and niches, all aligned with astonishing accuracy. When you stand in front of one of these openings, you often see a perfect visual corridor through several successive chambers. These multi-room alignments are not random. They imply careful, intentional design, possibly connected to solar or ceremonial functions. Yet their technical execution, involving massive, individually shaped stones forming monolithic door frames and seamless transitions, suggests a construction technique far beyond simple stacking. Jay from the Voyager TV YouTube channel visited the site and measured each of the false windows with a digital protractor. He was stunned to discover that the bottom of all of them measured exactly 86 degrees. The top portion of these alcoves measures precisely 90 degrees, creating a subtle but intentional tapering. However, what makes this design particularly fascinating is its uniformity across great distances and its perfect integration into complex polygonal stonework. Roughly 70 kilometers away in the mountain stronghold of Ollanta Tambo, located in the Sacred Valley, another temple structure exhibits these exact same measurements. Inside its ruins, nestled high on the mountainside, are alcoves and false windows that mirror the 86 degrees design of Coricancha, down to the smallest detail. This level of consistency across vast distances implies a shared blueprint or standardized system of measurement, something we associate more with industrial or modern architecture than with ancient empires lacking written technical records. Even the doorways within Coricancha adhere to this angular discipline. At the base of every portal, where the stones flare outward, the same 86 degrees angle is found, repeated again and again with uncanny accuracy. These are not rough approximations, but mathematically precise constructions, executed in hard andesite stone with no margin for error. Inside the temple, there are numerous excavated stone blocks on display, blocks featuring drilled holes and extremely precise grooves. The drilled holes themselves are perfectly circular and plunge deep into the extremely hard stone. The holes are so clean and symmetrical that they resemble modern drill holes. If we look closer, we can see the tiny groove marks, which suggests some kind of machine could be used to drill this stone. On certain blocks, you also see shallow channels or T-shaped cutouts on Chi surface dot. These T-grooves are intriguing because they are as strongly reminiscent of the masonry at far older Tiwanaku in Bolivia, where bronze clamps were used to hold stones together. Some of the blocks feature peculiar indentations that resemble channels, suggesting they may have once been used for piping connectors or conduits of some kind that were part of some sort of hydraulic system. If we examine the door of the Moon Temple, we can see remarkably advanced engineering. Intricate stone walls, fitted without mortar, feature perfectly angled drill holes, their purpose still debated. The walls inside the temple are truly astonishing. Just look at this precise fitting that is connected with astonishing accuracy. A remarkably interesting detail can be found on the walls of the inner temple of Coricancha, a feature so subtle it's often overlooked, yet so precise it may hold clues to a lost global tradition of megalithic engineering. Embedded between massive, multi-ton andesite blocks is a tiny, perfectly shaped stone, inserted with such meticulous care that it fits seamlessly into the larger structure. The precision is astonishing. No mortar, no filler, just exact geometry, snug enough to withstand centuries of seismic activity without shifting. In fact, this small block in the center is not accidental at all. This stone marks the point of stress relief. On its own, this might be dismissed as a clever local technique, but what makes it especially intriguing is that similar small stone insertions can only be found on the oldest, most mysterious, and most complex megalithic structures all around the world. For example, the wall at Ahu-Vinapu on Easter Island, the Osirian of Abydos in Egypt, and even all the way to the Osaka Castle in Japan. Is this a simple coincidence, or an evidence for a now lost global prehistoric civilization? One of the most overlooked yet technically significant features of Coricancha's construction lies in its corner joints, specifically the use of L-shaped stone blocks that seamlessly wrap around the edges of the walls. These cornerstones are not simply two stones abutting at a 90 degrees angle. They are single blocks meticulously carved into an L shape, designed to tie adjacent walls together into a unified structure. Again, we see the exact same technique all across the globe in Egypt. Alternative theorists suggest that the shaping of these blocks may have involved methods we no longer understand, ranging from unknown abrasion techniques, chemical stone softening, or even stone casting using lost geopolymers. Whatever the method, the result speaks of a knowledge system far more advanced than what conventional history attributes to the Inca. Long before Spanish boots echoed through the streets of Cusco, before crosses replaced solar discs and gold was melted into ingots for shipment to Spain, Coricancha stood as one of the most resplendent sacred sites in the ancient world, a temple of light, gold, and celestial alignment. Historical chronicles, including those of early Spanish chroniclers like Garcilaso de la Vega and Pedro Chiesa de León, paint a picture of unparalleled magnificence. The temple's name, Coricancha, is derived from the Quechua words curi, gold, and cancha, enclosure or sacred space, and it lived up to that name in every sense. Its outer walls, now bare and gray, were once completely covered in plates of solid gold, reflecting the sun's rays so brilliantly that from a distance, the temple appeared to be ablaze with divine light. Inside, the radiance only intensified. The inner sanctum of Coricancha was said to contain a massive golden disk, symbolizing Inti, the Inca sun god. Mounted high on the eastern wall, this disk was aligned so that during the June solstice, the first rays of the rising sun would shine directly upon it, bathing the room in golden light and triggering ceremonial observances that marked the Inca New Year. Some accounts suggest that this disk also acted as a solar mirror, reflecting sunlight deeper into the temple's corridors, possibly into secret or symbolic chambers that responded to this precise astronomical moment. But this brilliant beacon of solar worship did not survive the conquest. When the Spanish arrived in the 1530s, they were staggered by the wealth of Coricancha and promptly stripped it bare. Gold and silver were looted en masse, melted down into bullion to fill the coffers of the Spanish crown. The Golden Garden was uprooted. The great sun disk, rumored to be carried away or hidden by priests, was never seen again. Over time, the temple itself was buried under the convent of Santo Domingo, a Christian monument symbolically constructed atop the Inca holy site in a deliberate act of religious domination. What remains today are only the bones, the earthquake-proof stone walls, the tightly fitted blocks of the inner chambers, and the few scattered remnants of a once glorious structure. Yet, even in this skeletal form, Coricancha still radiates mystery. All these observations feed into a tantalizing theory that the Andes were once home to a lost civilization with engineering capabilities far beyond what we traditionally credit to indigenous cultures of the 1st or 2nd millennium CE. This hypothetical civilization would have predated the Inca, perhaps by thousands of years, and could have been responsible for laying the foundations, literally, of sites like Coricancha, Sacsayhuaman, and Ollantaytambo. Some proponents link this idea to global lost civilization theories, suggesting that after a cataclysm, like the end of the last ice age approximately 12,000 years ago, remnants of an advanced culture might have shared their building knowledge with survivors in different parts of the world. It's an intriguing attempt to explain why megalithic, precise masonry appears in places as disparate as Peru, Egypt, and Easter Island. For the Andes specifically, one could imagine an ancient people, call them the Andean Atlanteans for lack of a better term, who had developed techniques to shape and move stone with ease. They might have had metal tools superior to what we've found, perhaps lost or melted down over time, or even machines to abrade or lift heavy rocks. Some radical ideas even involve sound technology, acoustic levitation of stones, or unknown energy sources to melt and reform rock. While these notions drift into speculative territory, they're inspired by real enigmas in the stones. Amid the ruin and loss that followed the Spanish conquest of Coricancha, almost every trace of the Inca Empire's golden splendor was stripped away, melted, stolen, or destroyed. But one extraordinary artifact somehow survived the plunder, a remnant of sacred knowledge cast in gold, known as the Golden Altar Star Map. This relic, though rarely discussed in mainstream sources, is considered by some researchers to be one of the most important surviving Inca artifacts, not merely for its material value, but for what it records, a celestial map of the heavens as seen by the ancient Andean sky watchers. It is, to date, the only known star map in gold from the ancient world in South America, and perhaps the most direct visual testimony of the Incas' astronomical knowledge and spiritual cosmology. The star map, sometimes referred to as the altar of the cosmos, is said to have once adorned a sacred wall or pedestal within Coricancha, likely beneath or adjacent to the great golden disk of Inti, the sun god. Crafted from thin sheets of gold and etched with symbolic carvings, the map depicts a sky filled with constellations known to the Inca, along with their mythological associations, stars and celestial groupings tied to deities, animals, and sacred narratives passed down orally through generations. Alongside the star map, another surviving fragment is referred to as the Golden Wall, a gilded sheet that may once have covered an entire temple wall or ceremonial backdrop. Today, only portions remain, but researchers speculate that this piece was part of a larger golden overlay system used throughout Coricancha. While the Inca undoubtedly held the temple in the highest esteem, adorning it with gold, aligning it with the sun, and integrating it into their ceremonial life, the evidence suggests they were not its original builders. Instead, they were the inheritors of a structure so advanced in its engineering and design that even they may have viewed it as the work of gods or forgotten ancestors. The precision of the masonry, the use of L-shaped cornerstones, the presence of vitrified joints, polygonal stone blocks with seamless integration, mysterious niches, tool marks, and a design that integrates astronomical knowledge all point to a level of architectural sophistication that predates known Inca methods. It is plausible and increasingly compelling to consider that Coricancha was built by an earlier, prehistoric civilization, one whose name and memory have been lost to history, yet whose knowledge was so refined that even thousands of years later, the structure remained standing, largely unaltered in form. The Inca, recognizing its sacredness and strategic importance, adapted it to their cosmology and culture, just as later the Spanish would build their convent upon it in an effort to overwrite both civilizations. This perspective reframes Coricancha not as a standalone monument, but as part of a continuum of ancient inheritance, a relic of a time when human beings may have possessed a different kind of knowledge, one based not only on brute labor, but on advanced geometry, astronomical precision, and possibly even unknown technologies.